Okay, so this is our Atomos Ninja 5 video recorder. If you're new to video, you probably don't need this unless you're doing something like green screen. What this is made for is to plug into your camera and record straight to here to this SSD. Now, instead of your SD card. The reason is the cameras usually will have their video record quite compressed, whereas this will record it as raw or just very high quality. It does come with issues. It is a lot harder to work with, but it'll make your video higher quality, which is better for grading or for green screening, things like that. So it records straight to this SSD. The way you get this out is you just push it out. I like to grab it from like here. Put my nails in there and just push, just so I can get all the leverage and I'm not accidentally bending it in this way, although that's what these clips are for. And this is just a normal SSD. This one's made for Atomos because it's fast enough to record at such high quality. Over here is for where you plug in the batteries. You'll just be using some normal Sony batteries, or it comes with a plug-in mount, which we just plug into the wall. So if you're anywhere near power, this is probably the best way to do it, so you don't have to worry about getting batteries. It doesn't mean you have to worry about the cable, but you'll notice that also it doesn't fit in perfectly without pushing it, so just push it in and then it clicks in really easily. So just make sure to give it a little push. Okay, and let's turn it on and see what this does. Oh, one thing you'll also need to do is you'll need to mount this somewhere near your camera, of course, because you're going to be plugging it through HDMI. Now, over here, this is just one of the options that you could use. You could use something like this, where you mount it through here and then mount this onto your tripod or your shoulder cam. This is one of the issues that the Ninja 5 has. Well, not that the Ninja 5 has, just that an external recorder has, is that you have to find a way to mount this. It is also good to use as a secondary screen. Now, the way this works, it says no input because it's not plugged into anything. Over here, you've got an HDMI in, HDMI out. So you just need to plug in your HDMI. So over here, I've got my Sony a7 III. I'll be using it for this demonstration. Another downside of using these external recorders is you are using your HDMI port from your camera, and you'll notice that this HDMI port is pretty small and it's kind of flimsy. So if you're not careful and if you move this cable around too much, you'll start eventually wearing out this port, and this port in the camera will break. So be careful, please, when you're using this. Just maybe clip this onto something, or that's on just like where mount it with the camera or something like that. So make sure the cable isn't freely moving. Okay, so that's plugged into my HDMI out, and here I want to go to plug this into my HDMI in. Different cameras will have different types of HDMI output. And let's turn on the camera and see what we got. And I notice now we can see what the camera is seeing. So if I move the camera around, works pretty well. So to record, you just press this record button over here, and now you can see it's recording. And to stop it, you just press the stop button. There you go. And to play videos, you just go play. And now that we're in play mode, we can see the video that I just recorded. Now the one thing that you really have to be careful with when you're recording using an external recorder is to get a clean signal through the HDMI cable. So depending on your camera and your camera settings, what's being outputted from the camera might not be what you want to be recording. Here's everything is set up properly, but if you press the menu button and go to Setup 3, you can have some HDMI settings there to play around with. What you just need to make sure is all of these little symbols and little numbers and like what your shutter speed is and stuff, you want to make sure that doesn't appear over here. So depending on what camera you're using, we'll have different ways of turning that on and off. But you just want to make sure that your HDMI signal is very clean. And also, before you use one of these, make sure that your camera's HDMI signal is actually the resolution you want as well. So sometimes these cameras will only give you a specific resolution of like 720p or something out of the HDMI. Even though the camera might be a full HD camera, it might not be able to export full HD from its HDMI. So just make sure that the camera is right to do that. These Sonys are good for it. So let's check out the recording settings. If you click on this little button, it'll take you to your settings, and you could see your input, output, and record. So input, we could see that we're inputting full HD, sorry, Ultra HD, and you could see that you've got your HDMI trigger on, which is good, and output, your video output, this is what's going out of here, so we don't really need to do that, and record, you've got your, what kind of quality you're recording, so this is currently using the codec ProRes at HQ compression, and this is UHD, Ultra HD, which is kind of like 4K. If we want to change it to DNX HD, maybe we'd click on that. Now it's DNX HD, and we could choose what kind of compression we're using as well. What I'd recommend is ProRes HQ. That's a pretty good one. It's a very high quality, yet it's still a very manageable size to work with. So that's what I would keep it with. Okay, so one of the added benefits of using the Atomos Ninja 5 is that you have a secondary monitor, and this monitor is made for monitoring. So it's got a lot of cool tools. My favorite one is over here, this waveform. This waveform is kind of small right now, so I mean, this is probably enough for while you're shooting. But if I want to give you a better example, and if I want you guys to see it a little bit better, I'll have to open it up a little bit. The way you could do that is by clicking on this little Mon button, which is monitor. If you click on this, it gives you all the monitoring buttons. And over here, you can see that the waveform gets a lot bigger, and you can click on it, it makes it even bigger. And you might even, you can click on it and make it huge. So the way this works is whatever is all the way up at the top is white, and whatever is at the bottom is black. So you can see over here that this black line isn't all the way at 0, which means nothing is too dark. And same with up there, you can see that nothing is too high up. Maybe there's a little dot up here that's a little bit overexposed, but besides that, everything's pretty well exposed. This is kind of how you want your image to turn out, where everything is between 0 and 100. Okay, so if I were to make things, for instance, a little bit darker on my camera over here, you'll start seeing how things will start getting flattened out down to 0 mark. You don't want that. And you don't want it the other way either, where everything's flattened up there, like this. Now things over here are getting overexposed. So you want everything to kind of be between 0 and 100. As best as you can. Sometimes things will be a little bit too bright, sometimes things will be a little bit too dark, but you try to get it something like this so you don't lose all that information. That's one of the benefits of using the Atomos Ninja 5. So you've got another variety of tools to use. Over here is your waveform RGB, which isn't too handy, or at least I don't like it too much. It's good for white balancing, but I just white balance myself. And you've got a few other standard scopes to use. And over here is your focus peaking. So I might turn this off and turn on focus peaking so I can show you what that does. It will show you those little red lines of what's in focus and what's not in focus. So for instance, over here, that PMA thing is not in focus, but if I were to try to focus on it, there we go. Now you can see I've got that PMA, it's pretty in focus, and that pen is definitely in focus. You can see that red. So it's pretty handy. I always just leave it on. Over here you've got zebras, which are pretty handy, and some other options like cropping and showing you different aspect ratios, and that's anamorphic, which we probably don't want to use. This one's your cropping, so you could view what it would look like at different croppings. And this is your title safe and action safe, which is pretty handy. And you could do some double magnification to make sure your focus is your stuff is in focus. So over here, for instance, if I want to focus on that PMA thing, I'll just see if I could do this one-handed. Yep, you can see that now the PMA is in focus. That double zoom really helps. Okay. Now, once you're done and you've finished recording, of course, you could take out your HDMI, and the camera didn't really record anything. You recorded it straight onto here. So what you need to do is you need to get the footage off here. So you just pull this out. There we go. And you use any kind of solid state drive reader. We have one over here. And you just plug that in, push, and then you just can plug that into your computer with USB. Same as a SD card reader, really. And that's it. That's how you use your Atomos Ninja 5.